Hey, everybody. I am so very happy that we're back for another season. This is really going to be a great one. I know it is. I mean, they all are, but I just have this extra special feeling. And what's really cool about this season is what's different than ever before is I now have two podcast co-hosts. So with me today is Kat Aragon. You're going to get to meet her and learn all about her. She is an amazing human. I just have had such a great time. We got to talk a couple of times, of course, before diving into this adventure. And she just has such a story to tell, has great perspective, and I just think you're going to love her. So I'm going to be quiet and ask her to introduce herself. So, hey, Kat.
Hi, thanks for having me. As always, I'm going to say that every time because I'm just so excited to be here. As far as a little bit about me, so my name is Kat Aragon, as you mentioned. My dad was in the Air Force. We traveled everywhere. I actually even lived in the Philippines, where my mom is from, for a few years. So I have a little bit of real-time experience there in the culture, which I think I'm sure we'll cover that at some point, which I
Oh,
think is very helpful in my perspective on some things. But yeah, so we did all the traveling. I'm the Air Force brat, right? So we're all in the creative field. So a little bit about that. My husband's a photographer. My daughter owns a spa, literally steps away from our photography studio. And my other two girls, one's in graduate school at UCLA for costume and wardrobe development for film and television.
wow, very
And
cool.
the other one is in cinema as an undergraduate at VCU right now. So very much like
Wow.
not planned. We all do something different in the creative field, but it just happened to be that way where we all fell into those as our passions. And I'm a makeup artist. Have been for the last 25 years now. That started with my mom's salon. She's been a hairstylist since I was 5 years old because that's when I started getting perms. So
Oh,
that's
you're
the
like
only reason I know how long she's been.
5-year-old with perms. It's going to happen because mama got to practice. Sit
Yes,
down.
perms. It's a funny story. I actually thought I had curly hair my entire,
Oh,
life until 10 years old. And one day I was like, what would happen if we just combed it through instead of curling it up? And this is what happens when you just comb it through. I had stick straight hair. I had no idea.
oh, wow.
Found out at around 10, 11 years old. And yeah, so that's a little bit about my past. And I'm sure we'll go more into the makeup side of things, shortly, but that's just it in a nutshell.
Sure. You know how like families have family bands because everybody
Yeah.
either sings or plays an
Part
instrument.
of
I,
it.
I don't know what to call that when everybody has you're like a just a family
I just say family of
studio
creatives.
ready
I
to
don't know.
but it's not like just create because creatives
Yeah.
are but you've got costume and makeup and the cameras ready and a studio like it's a whole
Yeah.
production family.
I joke that like one day it makes sense for us to have a movie because and also because we obviously have the cinema student, but also my
Oh,
family,
yeah,
all of
yeah,
them
yeah.
cook.
There's that.
All of them
Sorry.
are amazing like chefs. And I'm like, we
Wow.
need a dinner theater where Taylor will cook and then go and like put the costumes on somebody.
Oh my
We'll be
God.
doing makeup, we'll be doing all the things. And I was like, and we need a movie on it. So I just don't even know how that's all
Wow.
gonna collide, but we
You
one day it
could
might.
do like the Bridgerton throwback and everyone's got costumes. There's royalty and food and
Yeah,
everyone looks glamorous and amazing, like
I see it.
impeccable.
I'm ready for somebody to hear this and be like, we have the perfect plan for this family.
Right? No kidding. All right.
Pitch us.
I mean, it's out there. Okay, universe, do your thing. Do what you
Exactly.
do. Wow. Yeah, okay. So I am pretty enamored. Like that's really cool. I started as a music major and then moved into teaching, but I never kind of gave up the music.
Yeah.
Obviously, here I am doing this, but in between have done all sorts of other um, creative stuff,
Right.
moving through life. My oldest is a drag performer. My youngest is
Mhm.
a visual artist, and
Yeah.
my husband has to deal with this. No I'm kidding. He actually, for a little while, he was a graphic artist in the Air Force, so that counts. So I
It's
get it. We
fun.
don't have.
It keeps us young.
I mean, I love it though, right? Like, it's there's it's a lot of fun. I don't know that if I had a job, even as a consultant, I get to be creative because I'm
Right.
solutioning, right? So or creating trainings or something. So
Mhm.
I mean, I really dig it. But all of ours are sort of like discrete things. You guys are like a package.
So funny. And the only way that it's like come together in any way, actually, so my daughter is home from graduate school right now, and she may be styling some things for upcoming photo shoots that we do for agencies and model, books and stuff like that. So she'll get some of her portfolio together while here. And then our photography lends well to when Maddie comes home and decides she wants to film something on a cyclorama wall that we have. Like, so we have all the parts
That's so cool.
for them to utilize. But
Yeah.
again, not necessarily anything planned together. Yeah,
Yeah, but things sometimes just come together. So,
exactly.
yeah. Well, tell us. So we heard little snippets. Lived in the Philippines for a little bit. You talked about your mom.
Mhm.
Um, Tell us why this show was interesting to you. I'm so happy to have you as a co-host. I'd like to know more about what it means to you to be part of something like this.
Well, yeah, I know you had posted something about this not too long ago, and talking, or I guess looking for people who identified as of mixed, ethnicity background, cultural backgrounds, and this really spoke to me. Obviously, like I said, I don't know if I actually said, my mom is Filipino, my dad is Caucasian. And so I've always grown up in this like dual household, it's like fully experiencing my dad's Caucasian, like upbringing and background, as well as fully experiencing my mom's Filipino,
Yeah.
side of things. And that's just always been the norm for me. And but also seeing how in the same world my mom could have such prejudices and things, against her when she was a hairstylist at different salons, and just like, not really getting chosen as, the person to do somebody's hair, or, and I would hear her come back with these grievances, but at the same time, she was always such a positive person that I think it probably maybe affected me and wanting me to have a voice for her more so than
Mm,
she cared to like have a voice for herself.
mhm.
So like I definitely wanted to have a space to speak about those kinds of things, but also I've just been such a natural advocate for everybody. Like it doesn't matter background, skin color, age, who you love, any of this. I remember in high
Yeah.
school, like it was like being in a mostly Caucasian school. It was like we were considered the minorities. It was
Yeah.
like the people who didn't have as many people to represent us within the school. Thankfully, as my kids, have gone through the entire public school system. I mean, it was really nice to just see the diversity, like knowing like maybe 80% of the school was not what I called, it is the minority, which is actually the population of the schools that they went to, which was amazing, to
Yeah.
to see that us come that far. But I'm also still in these industries where it feels like it inches further forward, like in the beauty industry, but it's still like there's just so many things that you still just want to shake people and be like, look, you guys have to wake up,
Yeah.
to being a voice and representation for everyone. So I still get that push and pull. But like I said from the very beginning, I've just been an advocate for people having a voice and being seen. I don't like people falling through the cracks or feeling like they're falling through the cracks, or just not being represented alongside with my mom, and seeing how she was kind of treated as a Filipino hairstylist in the beauty industry. All of that like lends to my passion to just help others stand in their power of like having a voice in their environment.
Yeah. No, there's a few things that you've said that I'd love to kind of explore a little bit, if that's
Yes.
okay. One of them that stood out to me a lot was you said something like, and forgive me if it's not your exact words, but you talked about your father's identity and your mother's identity, but you said fully this and fully that. When I was growing up, I was often, actually, let me back up a little bit. I think if there's new listeners, I probably should state this. So the show is about racial ambiguity, but not just racial ambiguity, also
Yes.
ethnicity, like all of these things that have nuance, right? There's
Mhm.
nothing, and I say it a little punny, but not really. There's nothing that's truly black or white here, or
Yeah.
black and white here. And I'm one of those racially ambiguous people and I'm not biracial. In
Mhm.
fact, that's why I don't identify that way.
Mhm.
Um, I am multi ethnic. But the thing is, people have been either racialized as, categorized as, labeled as, or maybe they describe themselves this way as being
Mhm.
half something.
Mhm.
I'm half this, I'm half that. And so it struck me when you said, I am fully this and fully that. I mean, maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but I'd love for you to like share more about that because so often people say half and half or whatever.
Well, because it's like you live the same life. I mean, you're living the life of what my dad knows and his upbringing and his culture and everything, and also what my mom knows. And
Yeah.
it's like sometimes they are within the same conversation. Sometimes they're in the
See?
same other. Every other sentence is like two different viewpoints, and so I'm like just back and forth between both. So, and that's what I mean. It's like I'm not getting half the experience, when I'm at home and talking to both my parents. I'm getting all of it. And sometimes it's a
Oh,
little overwhelming.
I'm getting it all.
I'm getting it all from all sides. And so I think that's really, what I mean by that. It's like
Yeah.
and I will say that I do sway like more so to when I'm older, again, kind of being that voice and that heartbeat for those. And it's so weird to say minority because I don't feel that way now. You know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah.
growing up, it was always like I felt like the minority and stuff. So it was just like my passion stood behind there. I just feel like I love my dad, and I just don't feel like he needs fighting for, in that way. So it's like,
Gotcha.
so I've always picked up like the
Yeah.
the boxing gloves for my mom, if anything, and not against my dad, but against, just the world, I guess I would
Well,
say,
well,
yeah.
also you said you saw things like you saw it
Yeah,
growing up as
exactly,
she was
exactly.
working. You saw the way she would be overlooked. Just real quick in terms of words because words can be tricky.
Oh
Everybody
yeah, for
uses
sure.
different terminology. Sometimes it's more common to say like the underserved communities or
Mhm.
underrepresented,
I
and
love,
because
yeah.
it's people who actually like I'm not going to go off into my tangent today, but there's a whole thing about majority minority nation, how as the population changes, there are
Yes,
actually more
yes.
people of
Uh-huh.
color, meaning non-white, than there are. Well, they're not yet. They're saying okay, but it's coming. Still,
Oh,
the
for
white
sure,
population
yes.
is the largest, but they're saying by 2050. That will not necessarily be the case. We'll dig into
Which
that
is
another time. Oh,
Which
I'm
is why
sorry.
I was so excited to even talk about this. Like you had mentioned one thing when we first met
Mm,
was, we, I have so many different things that I'm a part of, again, as an advocate for different cultural backgrounds and ethnicities. And yet, you ask the simple question of like, okay, well, where are you talking about your experience, and where are you, what platform
yeah.
are you able to dive into where you can talk about how you do have, again, your mother and father coming together, and and having the experience from both sides of things. And I was like, I don't, I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I actually teared up and maybe even cried during that point because it just hit me. Like I was like, wow, we could be a voice for so many people and then forget to actually focus on us. And truth be told, like this is only going to grow, and
Yeah.
there's only going to be more need to have a platform where people are actually talking about this, because people are going to have to navigate feelings, and just wanting to know that they're not by themselves, so
Oh man. Yes,
yeah.
that's what I hear the most.
Hmm.
Again, this is season 5, right? Like
Yes.
all of this time, all the feedback that I get is a lot of thank you. Thank you for holding the space.
Yes.
Um, People appreciate feeling like or knowing they're not alone as they listen to other stories. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I think that's why I focus so much on belonging. So part of its identity, but the other is belonging because I say this thing like it's a strange feeling to fit in everywhere
Hmm.
but belong nowhere because our
Hmm.
society sets up these boxes for us, and it's like, well, like
Literal
you
boxes.
I mean, well,
Check off.
yes, yes. But you said this thing, about like advocating for others, but
Hmm.
where's your voice in this,
Hmm.
and what does this mean for you? And I just think that's important because we can sort of be chameleons in a way and fit in a little bit here and fit in a little bit there, but like, where's your space, and how can
Right.
we have that space for one another? Tell us more about the advocacy thing because this is one of the things that I was like, absolutely. You've had some very specific ways that you've been able to support people who clearly have been underrepresented in the beauty industry, specifically cosmetics. Would you
Yes.
tell a little bit about that?
Sure. So like I said, I've been in the makeup industry. I don't know how long, but it's been 25 years this year. I graduated as an esthetician in 1999, And I kind of got thrown into the makeup side of things. That's not why I started, in aesthetics. I actually started in aesthetics to learn more about skin. Myself didn't have great skin. So I just wanted to learn more about that. But also, I had an opportunity to manage my mom's salon when she was opening her own salon. And my dad said, like, we're opening the salon. So I was like, okay, amazing. He said, I just need you to go to school at least for a semester. And it was perfect timing because one, I was not doing well in school. Had no idea what I was doing or wanted to do for a living. I was in this space where every 3 months I was changing my mind as to what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So going to this aesthetics school for like facials, skincare, for anybody who doesn't know
Yeah.
what aesthetics is, because it is that interesting word. But going to school for
I know,
that,
I like to try to say esthetician,
esthetician.
esthetician.
So when I went to school for that, it served me in a couple of ways. One, like I said, it helped me get off the path of not knowing what I was going to do and focusing on something for once. But also, I was going through major social anxiety at this time, where there was no way, like, if this was that time, I would be talking to you right now. Like,
Mm,
I wouldn't be able to have a conversation without having a panic attack. It was like that
wow.
bad. And being in a campus was not helping that. So, and on top of having
Sure.
ADHD and everything else. So I just feel like having that small 8 to 10 person class was exactly what I needed. And with my goal being to be able to help people fall asleep in a candlelit room with soft music, like that
Oh,
was like my
look,
dream
I'm
job.
like, that's my dream situation right now.
That I will definitely take you up on that offer. So that's how I ended up in the beauty world because of my mom and her opening that salon. I ended up
Yeah.
loving what I was doing there and eventually got into the makeup side when my mom's like, "You're the only one who's gone to school recently and we're doing weddings, so go." Like it was just one of those things and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't really know what I'm doing." So I really tiptoed and just tried to learn as much as I could. Eventually I got enough confidence where the photography bug hit me because I was doing some photography for my own makeup line. And so that's when I started getting into that side of things. So I had to set up a photo shoot. And
Yeah.
I couldn't shut my brain off to this whole other world I didn't know existed as I was in the four walls of the salon. And this is how Lewis comes in. Like everybody thinks my husband like and me met on a set and it was some like scandalous love affair, but it was actually not. He
I'm like, do
actually
we need to
said,
have another episode?
yeah, yeah, exactly. No,
Meet the
actually,
real cat. No, I'm kidding.
actually, he was like, "You're not getting paid for this."
Mm,
He's like, "How hard can this be?" This is like, I just remember his words. How hard can this be? And so I decided I wanted to pick up a camera. So I was going to do my own pictures. I'm like, I'm going to take this in my own hands. I'm going to be a photographer and makeup artist. Found out I was pregnant the next day after. This was my
oh,
second child at the time. I knew I was
wow.
so morning sick with first child. So I was like, never mind, I'm returning this. And Lewis is like, let's just bring it to our family trip, see if we like the camera. We'll keep it as a family camera. And I mean, that was it. That was his first camera, and probably like 30 cameras later, here we are, but
Uh,
he
okay, for
loved
the
it.
camera snobs out there,
Yes.
Canon,
Okay.
Nikon.
He, he, all of it, really. So right now, I'm coming to you from a Fuji camera.
Oh,
He's Fuji right on. He's got Fuji, but then he's also Sony. So he
okay.
did Canon for a while. He did Sony. Oh, we have all of them.
Oh,
Crazy. So anyways, that's what got me into all the different things. But then as a freelance makeup artist, you really have to pick up a lot of different jobs. Like you can't
mm,
just work on clients all the time. I did everything from working at beauty counters, which was very short lived. Well, gosh, I just couldn't imagine myself being in this situation more than one time. And what
wait,
happened
wait.
was,
What's the situation? Tell us. Tell us.
what happened was there was an event. It was my very first event on the floor at the department store. I remember it was at Nordstrom's and Tyson's, and this brand had like a star artist come in. I guess they have their like, big celebrity artists that come in and I'm
Okay.
green and new and I don't know what's going on or who this person is. But I'm just excited to be working. I got a week of training and, like I said, I've only had experience with my own line and like some other things I've added to my kit. And I get my very first person sitting in my chair and she has this beautiful chocolate deep skin tone and I'm like, okay, I'm so excited. Like, what do we have? I know about our like eyeliners and this and that, but I'm not familiar with the foundation range at all. I feel like this is probably something I should have asked a long time ago, but I was thinking more about the techniques when I was training.
Mhm.
So I go up to the counter and I was like, okay, what do you have? Like, I need a deeper skin tone, a little bit of a red undertone. And never gonna forget hearing the words, "We don't have her shade," and I was like, "So I'm
Wait,
brand new here."
okay, and it's a celebrity art. Like,
No, the celebrity artist was there, but they gave me the new girl, the person who they did not recognize in their line, in her color and in her undertone, and put her in my chair for me to tell her that I don't have anything for you. So that was my one and only experience that I needed to experience in that space. But I remember even going to the celebrity artist and be like, "Hey, like what do I use?" And he was like, "Oh, just, put some skincare on her, and like here's a lip and some whatever."
wow.
Thankfully, she had amazing skin. And
Yeah.
I only needed to have one other experience where I was the person who was like, actually, I didn't realize it was a cardinal sin to let somebody leave without buying something.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my gosh, like these two things mixed together. Like, one, I don't even have what I need to service the client sitting in my chair, but I also like am pressured to have to sell something to somebody. I was like, this is not for me. This is like, I'm here to be of value to people and to help
yeah.
people. Like, I can't do this.
Mm.
I mean, I respected the people who can do it. It wasn't me. I could not do it. So it was one of those things where I was like, this isn't cut out for me. Let me go seek more in the world of, makeup artistry outside of the department store. But the other thing that I ran into more and more often, unfortunately, was we would have a lot of situations where makeup artists had to bring their own kits to fashion shows
Yeah.
and, fashion week, or even if it was a local fashion show. And a lot of times those aren't sponsored because they're on a local level and they're like a lower scale budget. They're not sponsored. So they'll get the models from different agencies. And so many times, I just remember me being the one mostly working on any woman of color that was there because I was pretty much the only one that had the shades of foundation and the colors that would work for their skin tone. And
Mm.
I do remember, and again, this is me being the newer artist. So I'm like, I think that it gave me like the like I would just become mama bear of all these shoots and everything. And like I would just pull immediately people that were women of color, people that had deeper skin tones, people that felt like they looked very worried about what was about to happen when they sat in somebody's
Yeah.
chair and they're
Yeah.
looking at their lineup and it goes up to lighter than me. I and I mean, even senior artists that have been artists for like 30 something years who have worked with like top iconic people would
Yeah.
still be like, I don't have her shade. I'm like, how are we still dealing with this after all of this time? And this, mind you, this was like now 15, 20 years ago, 15 years ago at this point when I was
Yeah.
working in that arena. So I've just been somebody who, one, wants to make sure that I will always have somebody for anyone who sits in my chair, but also to never skip a beat and making sure somebody knows, like, yeah, you're meant to be here. We appreciate that you're
Um,
here, and we're so excited for you to be here, and like make them feel like the star that they are.
I am so glad you said that because
Hmm.
that's it, Kat. When I'm talking about the feeling of belonging, like you're supposed to be there because you're hired to be there or you're going to do
Right.
this show or whatever. But then, even though you're supposed to be there and that you fit there because that's your job, you don't belong because the place isn't designed for you. Nothing's designed for you. And
Hmm.
so I love that you're able to do that for people. I think it is changing, as more and more lines come out and it's been more recognized. And of course, some things in most, recent history within the last few years kind of amplified that need, I think, and sort of sped that process up. But we're still working on it, right? But it's
Yeah.
so important. There's certain things that really irk me, and it's again back to words. This idea of certain skin tones are the default, and it's like, yo, this is America. How
Yes.
many different people are here? But why do our brains? Did you know the story about Band-Aids? Like why Band-Aids were beige? It was meant to blend in with your skin. And so
Yes.
I found
Yep.
this old like 1950s commercial. Of course, it's a woman in the kitchen doing dishes. Oh, look, you
Hmm.
can't see it. God. But it's this idea that it was supposed to be like nude or skin tone.
Right.
But it's like
Yeah.
that is definitely not everybody's skin tone. So if you put a band-aid that color on a person who's not that color, it's going to do the very opposite of what it's supposed to do, which is blend in. It's going to totally stick out. So
Yeah.
products like Browndages are amazing, or like the color, different coloring companies. That Crayola's
Yeah.
one, but now there's more where they offer multicultural or
Oh
multiracial
goodness.
colors. Or but just the word nude, I won't name the makeup line, but there's a line still today. I could go into like a drugstore. They're kind of a drugstore brand. And
Hmm.
they have primers that there's like a white primer and there's one called nude. And I'm like, dude, one person's nude is way different than another person's nude, so to speak,
Right.
or like pantyhose,
Oh my
nude. So
gosh.
that it's that whole default, like, who was this
And
built
how long did
for?
it take to get pantyhose to change over from like either had like these, I was gonna say pasty pill, but I'm not gonna say
I, I know,
these like
I knew
really
what you were thinking. I knew exactly what
these
you
like
were.
really, really light colors all the way to like you just have black sheer pantyhose. And I was like, okay,
That's
So
it.
I mean, oh, I do
Yeah.
remember suntan. Suntan was a favorite.
Well, that came out, but it's like orange. And then we all have different undertones. So it's like, oh, who are you fooling? You got your whole little
Right.
thing, and then your legs are orange. That's not working.
Well, and that's the problem is that I think we're, you had asked about my involvement and what I do with like in
Yeah.
terms of the brand that I work with. We have a dedication, and this was before this became the popular thing to do, right? It's like we just have a dedication for always making sure that we have a makeup line that represents all skin tones. And when I say
Love
all
it.
skin tones, I mean like real skin tones, like skin tones with actual undertones that mimic humans. My goodness, I've been seeing things where they're just going to put out different shades to say we have the darkest shade in our line, but there's literally no undertone. They added a white drop of pigment to black, like, and they're like, and we have the deepest shade, which matches nobody in this world,
I
and
actually put a thing in the show notes on this because I saw something where someone was like, "Are you even kidding?"
but like we have 34 shades in the line that I've been working with for the last 10 years, which is a pro makeup line that went into retail. So it's something I've already been using in my brand. Like, remember I said I had my own makeup line?
Yeah.
So it was really great for people in person. But what I found when I was going into the photography world was that not all makeup works great under lighting and
Mm.
photography. So I that was really important to me. So I mixed things up and I had everything that I needed in terms of like me being able to mix it, but it wasn't readily available to customers. When that was brought to the company's attention, it was like an immediate yes. What else do you
Mm.
need? And I think that was the most important thing. It's like I don't believe there's any company out there that is perfect. What is perfect is a company that will listen and,
Oh yeah.
and listen to the customers, listen to if it's a sales company to the field and do something and implement something. So as long as I've been seeing that for 10 years of just always expanding, always implementing, always like, and just hearing everybody's collective voice, like that's when I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm standing behind the right place. And we're always still expanding. So that's the line that I'm really proud of. It was like, no, it didn't always start like this, but they realized that it made sense to expand and they
Yeah.
used their money to expand it, right? So it was one of those things where the On the Rise initiative started, and it was just this conversation then when everything happened with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all those conversations. We had a lot of hurt people in our in our sales field that were like we can't go tone deaf on everything that's happening. And while all these companies were making these claims about just standing with women of color, with black women, it was one of these things where we're like, yes, of course we're going to do that too. This makes sense, because we've already been in this conversation. And interestingly enough, of course, some people also aren't going to like that and feel like you're too involved now and, and like political, like things and became political and left. And that's okay. That's okay. Like it's fine. But that's where they decided that they needed to focus. Now the difference is years later, we are still doing that. It was during COVID when all this came out, and I'm like, how are we gonna like have a pan of foundation? And people are be like, yes, that's my shade, but there's no representation on an actual person.
Yeah.
I asked them like, how possible is it to get a photo shoot together? Nobody's even gathering together. And they were like, it's not possible, especially when we have 34 shades. And I was like, we got you. So I put out a call. And the beautiful thing about this is my community, we all came together, and it was like if I didn't have somebody to fill this color foundation, like somebody knew somebody, they were putting it in all of the different groups everywhere. And within 2 weeks of shooting, we had all 34 shades taken care of within just the people of my neighborhood and this community. And that's what I mean by real people who fit real colors.
That's such a fantastic thing that you did. And also, like, way to build community too and show like these are just the people who are around you who represent all of these different beautiful colors. Like, why not? That's
Right.
so cool.
And you know what I really loved about it too, and bringing it back to like kind of our topic on what we're speaking of here is, you know, of course it goes back to like advocacy and being seen, everybody being seen, and you know, and everybody having a shade that represents them or colors that we're going to work with their skin tone. I just love that we have that space, you know, to be able to be an advocate.
Well, there's a thing that you said a little while ago about,
Mhm.
you said this thing about, during mostly 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
there were so many posts and the websites changed. I even know of a company who like somebody pointed out on a social media site that their leadership was all, they were like, oh, we stand with the Black community. And they're like, really? Because have you looked at your leadership page? And I was like, oh, yes,
Right.
they did get called out.
Yes.
And then guess what happened?
There were a lot of lines or Instagram accounts to this day. I'm still like, you know, I remember following them because they were doing the call outs, you know, of like different companies that were saying like,
Well,
okay, how much percentage here? Like,
well, this company, after someone pointed out to them, they mixed up all the people on their website, so you couldn't tell who was leaders and who wasn't. So
oh my goodness.
they just looked like this wonderfully diverse, but they didn't say like, oh, well, here's who's in the hierarchy at our
Right.
place, right? Like, we call that the reverse ombre effect. Anyway, I won't go into that today.
I can't wait to learn all these things that you.
Well, that's not an official term. That's just
I
something.
know. I
But
want to know it all. Like, I want to.
but
Because
no,
I just go really long in describing something where you could describe it in like 3 words. I'm like, yeah, I need to learn that term.
it's this thing. Some of them are just Shauna-isms. Let's just
I love it.
to be fair. But when you talked about this solidarity, or something came to mind when you said, these folks were saying they're going to stand with the Black community, and I was thinking about standing. Standing is pretty, like, nothing is happening when you're standing. There's no movement, right? How about, don't just stand with me. Let's be in motion. Let's act. And I just
I love
recently wrote
that.
an article about allyship. I was talking with another friend of mine. One of the things that kind of got to her was this idea that people claim to be allies. They say that they're an ally, but they're standing. Great. Thank you for standing. Can you move too? Like,
Yes.
how about let's do things? And I thought, well, I think there are tiers to this. I think of it like a continuum. And I just published, I'll put it in the show notes. I made a framework. I call it the 5S framework, where there's levels, because not everybody is ready to move. So, like,
Yeah.
there's a sympathizer. You know what I think? I say it's like this. Like, whenever you see one of those commercials for like ASPCA or like World Wildlife Foundation,
Yes.
the WWF. So, like, when one of those commercials comes on, or like
You're
Shriners
like,
or
aw.
St. Jude, yeah, people are like, oh, dang. And it pulls on your heartstrings.
Yes.
But then the commercial changes, or you turn off your TV, or you do something else, and then it's out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right.
So I think of that as like the sympathizer. And then there's a supporter who wants to learn more. So they're listening, they're not actually doing yet, but they are more engaged. And then there's a sponsor, the person
Right.
who's like, oh, let me connect you, let me network you. I get it. They might start to like be the person who says to somebody in a conversation, like, did you know about this thing? And then moving up from there would be the spokesperson who's now an educator. So not
Yeah.
only are they involved, but they're teaching other people. And then the top of this tier, I listed as the strategist. They're the activists. They are leading charges on a big scale. And there's like a little graph I drew that was like, look, the higher you go up on this tier, it's like the more risk there is because you're sticking your neck out further, but also the more impact you have.
I love that. We
Oh, my
didn't even
framework
mean to do that,
works.
but you're spot on. Yeah. On the rise, people, on the rise.
Yeah.
Yay, we did it right.
No, I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, Kat, I can tell this is going to, well, I already said it, and I mean it sincerely. This is going to be an amazing season. I love having a fresh perspective. You know, people don't want to just hear me like give my Shawna isms and whatever. It's nice to have people who can see what it's like and have experienced what it's like in different spaces,
Yeah.
different places with different people. So thank you for being part of this journey with me. And, we're going to be together with Rachel pretty soon too, our
Yeah.
other co-host. So this is so amazing. Is there anything that you hope for or that you're looking for out of this season?
I just really, like I said, like we grow up and we are in our like silos, and we try to let as many people in as possible so we can learn more. But this just gives me a chance to learn even more, from different people. I only know what I know, right? And so
Sure.
I'm always just a sponge. I
Yeah.
want to hear from other people. So
No, that's really fantastic. I so appreciate that. That's something that you're looking forward to. In terms of all of your wonderfulness, do you want to shout out anything or anyone in particular, or have folks reach out to you or follow you in some way? That's
sure.
up to you.
You can follow me on Instagram, Kat Aragon, but you can get in touch with me and follow me and all I'm just an open book on at Kat Aragon on Instagram.
Awesome. Yay, this is going to be such a good
I'm
season. Thank you
excited.
so much, Kat. Hey, y'all, we are going to be back for more. This is literally just the beginning. So if you haven't
Yeah.
already, do be sure to subscribe, follow, and share it with somebody. Like, say, y'all, you got to check out the show. Um, all right, y'all. I guess we're going to wrap, Kat. This is going to be amazing. Thank you. And we're going to talk soon.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, take care.